you'll agree with me that the panelists have put across the perspective of the other countries within the Western Pacific region lucidly and have flagged certain issues which we hope will come up during the question hour. The House is now open to questions.
Comment that Japan is now getting ready to have military cooperation with countries like India. I'm told that when they came here, they offered that Shin Maezawa seaplane. They said you can have the seaplane, but without any of the weapon systems in it. So is that the kind of cooperation you have in mind?
We'll take a basket of questions and then put it across. Yes, Subha.
Within Southeast Asia, I think they are also having their own pivot within the larger American pivot, from Myanmar to Thailand to. But given the economic relationship with China and its overarching preponderance in Southeast Asia, where would they really go if there is a kind of a situation? Would they still go with the US side, or can they afford to antagonize China and think beyond that? And the second set of questions on Japan. India making a political investment in Japan, or India-Japan strategic partnership. My question here is, who are Japan's friends in the region? I'm not sure whether there is any country in that region that sees Japan as in a favorable way. Korea, China, or even US is not going to take that extra length to go on be. So would it be advisable on our part to make a heavy political investment in Japan, especially after listening to Professor Guruswamy's presentation in the morning? If it's going to be a economically weak power, what are we getting into?
Saigal?
My question is to Ambassador H.K. Singh. You talked about the emerging security architecture in Southeast Asia. I want to know, in your perception, what are the likely scenarios it can take, this architecture can take in the next 5 to 10 years? Because, when you're building up our own strategic relationships, they have to be placed in some context. And take, for example, the Indo-Japanese relationship. Obviously, Japan has a certain architecture in mind. It signed so many agreements and is trying to build up coalition relationship, not coalition, relationships in the region. Are we in agreement with that kind of an architecture, or do we have a different perceptions of that architecture? That's my question to you, sir.
One last question in this basket. Ambassador Badru Kumar.
You see, one thing we have to remember is that in the post-Ukraine situation in the Asia-Pacific, there are going to be some major shifts. Firstly, it all depends on how long this crisis continues. All indications are that it is going to be a protracted affair. And it is an existential question for Russia. So there is a confrontation building up there. Now, today morning, Obama called President Xi to thank him for the objective and fair stance of China on this question. And then, in the exchange, they said very nice things, and Xi confirmed that China has taken a neutral stance. And Obama said that the United States appreciates that China is exercising restraint on, pleading with Russia to be restrained and so on. Now, where does this leave Japan? Where does this leave the rebalanced strategy? And for Obama also, the Ukraine question has got many other dimensions, which are much more critical, because it is linked to the transatlantic leadership of the United States over Europe. So it's much more important, the fate of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the Western Alliance, everything. So it's a small price for United States to pay if, the heat is off China on this.
Professor Mohan Guruswamy's question because it was directed to Keswan, but let me try to answer the other couple of sets of questions. Southeast Asia, economic relations with China, can these countries afford to antagonize China? That's number one. Number two, strategic partnership with Japan going down, should we invest in China? Now, on the posture of ASEAN from the time it was founded, it tries its best to retain some room for independence of judgment in security issues without having to join either one part of an alliance or another type of a pressure. So normally that has been the case. What has happened recently? Well, everybody had a free ride because there was a unipolar moment, and the regional economic interdependence was galloping ahead as we all saw it. And all that has come under a reality check with the 3 or 4 types of coercions and assertions which we have seen coming out of China post-2008, when gradually it decided that its moment has come. I think that the ASEAN countries there may be a difference between the continental and the island countries, between countries directly affected by territorial claims and those which are not. But overall, the only viable construct of a regional institution or institutional basis is ASEAN over the last 50 years, 47 years. And I think that the countries of the region are conscious. If ASEAN collapsed in 2012, I would have said it was a different question. But it didn't collapse. It came back with a certain amount of reassurance that it will maintain its own. And I see that over the next 5 to 10 years, they will try to at least take steps to validate the kind of centrality which they have wanted to have in shaping regional architecture. And I think that more or less the statements which you see coming out of India, Japan, United States about EAS as a security forum, about ASEAN centrality, about ASEAN being the pivot of the Indo-Pacific. All these things show that things are moving in a direction which will retain a role for ASEAN in building these regional constructs. On Japan, should we invest in Japan? Japan is going down, etc., etc. Well, firstly, we don't invest in Japan because we are going to antagonize China. We are investing in Japan because there are huge benefits which we gain from that interaction with Japan. The only country which has built the economies of all of East Asia is Japan. It rose itself first, then it integrated the rest of the economies through its production chains and through its emphasis on infrastructure building. That entire process is now spread to India. We were late in this process simply because our economy was closed, and we really did not have that in the Cold War period. We did not have that kind of a relationship with Japan. So that, plus on building a stable regional order and a stable regional power balance, who better to cooperate with? Are you suggesting that we go and form some kind of a condominium with China? China does not even want to consider India's meaningful role in a multipolar Asia. There is no role for India. We're marginal. We're not even mentioned as the people who are going to be anywhere part of it. So the best way to go in all this is continue to try and make progress in our relations with China, but also build solid relationships with Japan, with Southeast Asia, across the board, and build our own strengths, quite obviously.
Defense cooperation between India and Japan, and this US-2 supply of, Japan supply of US-2 aircraft will be actually done in the form of civilian aircraft to begin with. You can't straight away, talk about military cooperation between India and Japan. It will take time. Therefore, I think the fact that Japan is willing to extend defense cooperation of whatever type that it actually chooses, that itself is a welcome development. Otherwise, it will take a very long. It has not done that kind of stuff to any other country. Only Philippines, for example, has received some patrol ships under Japan's ODA. There's an exception again. Now they are making an exception in the case of India too. I don't know whether this is really going to develop into a major military cooperation, etc. So I mean that is only not now, but it will take some time before actually Abe sorts out all his problems. Now with regard to who are Japan's friends in Southeast Asia? I think as Ambassador Singh rightly said, it was Japan which actually sowed the seeds of economic development in ASEAN soon after the end of the war. And Japan actually supplied reparations for a number of years in the ASEAN country. And the reparations made a fertile ground for future cooperation between Japan and ASEAN countries. And then later on, Japan's ODA also contributed substantially to ASEAN countries. Take the case of Burma, for example. Now, Japan has already opened its diplomatic relations with Burma, and you find how the Burmese are happy about that. Japan is a very, very really liked country in Burma. Japan has got numerous friends in Burma. And similarly, in Indonesia also, in Philippines, in Vietnam, they have forged new relationships with Vietnam and Philippines. And therefore, there are many, many friends there. In fact, Japan neglected ASEAN for a while because of its own domestic problems, economic problems, etc. But otherwise, I think Japan is a fairly well-liked country in the ASEAN region.
Lalita?
Hemant, the question is to Ambassador Hemant Krishan Singh. This is regarding the whole question of a regional security or strategic architecture or even a power architecture with the ASEAN centrality. I just participated in the Delhi Dialogue in Delhi, which is the annual dialogue track 1.5 between ASEAN and India. And it was interesting because the question of regional architecture, regional strategic architecture came up there as well. And the question was put directly to the ASEAN participants that have you discussed it among yourselves, since it's an ASEAN-led bodies where the discussion is mainly taking place, whether it's ARF or EAS or ADMM+. Have you taken a view within ASEAN what you feel about the construct that you should follow for a regional security architecture? And the answer was very interesting. They said there have been no official discussions within ASEAN itself about this. Then finally, after much prodding, I think the Brunei senior official who had attended the last round of meetings said that there had been some discussion between the senior officials looking at all the various proposals that were on the table, and it was possible that a second round of discussion at the officials level may take place. So my question is, in an ASEAN-led situation with the centrality of ASEAN, will a real sort of construct be possible if they are shying away so much from hard power issues or a security or a strategic architecture concept?
Thanks, Lata. I agree entirely that the question of ASEAN centrality obviously hinges around how relevant ASEAN tries to make itself for the future of regional balance and regional security architecture. And it's very true that since 2005, there has been marginal progress on taking the EAS process forward as a process which can tackle at the leaders level hard security issues. Now, mind you that in 2005, the hard security issues or the traditional security issues which have emerged since then didn't quite exist. It was a slightly different world. So that gave them the opportunity to progress this security architecture at the speed of the lowest common denominator. Now, this kind of laid-back approach is no longer feasible given the last 2 or 3 years of developments. The developments include, of course, the first time when they really moved forward, which is to expand the EAS to include the United States and Russia, thereby completing the picture of all the countries which are relevant to the region and which have direct interests in the region. Second has been the advent of the ADMM plus process, where some amount of military confidence building, military diplomacy, and perhaps some functional cooperation on security issues can take place. ARF largely has remained, as you know, a talking shop or a dialogue shop for non-traditional security issues. It has not progressed to preventive diplomacy and things which it was meant to. So what they face now is this challenge. Number one, Brunei, the Russians and the Brunei hosts, they took the initiative of saying there should be a chapeau of a European type of a OSCE, a treaty-bound kind of a body in Asia. That is so far away, and that is also distracting our attention from institutions which have already started making some progress to chart completely unknown waters which will not lead very far. So this is really basically, from India's perspective, it's more like a red herring where Russia and China try to throw spokes in the works of things which have already started to work and say, no, this is not, we need a new kind of something. And that new kind of a something is an import from Europe. We all know what a mess Europe is at the moment. There is not much, not many takers within Asia for that type of an engagement. But to answer you directly, next step has to be a rationalization within ASEAN, by ASEAN, giving core competencies to these three bodies, or four bodies now, including the ASEAN, expanded ASEAN Maritime Forum, what they are supposed to do, where they are going to connect with the EAS, to transmit real-time decisions taken in each of these fora to the higher or the other fora. And finally, to expand the EAS to at least a day, because leaders come there from all over the world, like they come for APEC. And if they're going to come for 2 hours of a retreat, they don't find it worth their time. ASEAN is fully aware of this. ASEAN is also aware of the fact that unless there is some stakeholding given to the other countries in the formulation of the agenda and in follow-up actions and institutional building around the EAS, it won't work. So this churn is going on in ASEAN, and I think there is. If you read the India-ASEAN 20th anniversary declaration, and you read the Japan-ASEAN 30th anniversary declaration, you find that them using exactly the same approaches to trying to develop greater relevance of what ASEAN is doing, knowing full well that nothing which China proposes will pass. The American hub and spokes as the only option for the region will not pass. Something which India brings up is not likely to go very far. So we are trying to say, use existing institutions and try to increase correspondence among them, end duplication, give clear duties and mandates, and in the agenda setting and institutionalization of EAS, involve countries which do not belong to ASEAN. It's a big challenge for them, I agree. But that's what we are posing, and Leela is actually leading she's the co-chair of a group which is trying to encourage positive thinking on the part of ASEAN at track 1 level in that direction.
I think we have clean run out of time, but let me just round off by saying that there is a continuous clash between individual sovereign issues as opposed to collectivism, and we have seen it. The differences within the nations are so much that to bring about a collective urge amongst them all is to actually have someone who has power across all dimensions to bring about such a, not a coalition, but certainly a collective approach. It's left for me to thank the panelists and thank the audience for having